I'm Jennifer Roberts, and I'm here to talk about IT and risk in the financial industry, specifically how chip and PIN technology will keep you safe. Let's start off with a little bit of credit and debit card statistics. I'm willing to bet that if I had any of you pull out your wallet or purse right now, you probably have at least a debit card and probably at least one credit card in there. It's estimated that 33% of Americans have at least 1 to 2 credit cards. Visa Card Services reported at the end of 2015 that they had 471 million active debit cards in the U.S. alone. They also reported that a new debit card is issued every 5 seconds. In the same year, a survey by the Chicago Tribune of 600 adults said 38% of them use a credit card for small purchases under $5. Card fraud has been a problem since the 80s when the magnetic strip was invented. In 2015, the U.S. can claim $3.89 billion in credit card loss. In terms of world card fraud, the U.S. is responsible for almost half. A whopping 47% of the world's reported credit card fraud comes from us. Each reissued card costs an average of $12.75 for the bank, or sometimes the consumer, depending on the bank's policy. And just because you're asleep doesn't mean you're free from fraud. Fraud happens more frequently between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And just because you're in the holiday spirit doesn't mean the criminals are. You're more likely to have credit card or debit card fraud occur between November and December during the holiday shopping period. Do not fear, EMV is here to save the day. Maybe. What is EMV? It stands for Europay, MasterCard, and Visa, the world's 3 major credit card companies that collaborated together to perfect this technology. Chip and PIN cards are equipped with a chip that uses technology to authenticate your transaction. It replaces the old school magnetic strip that we're used to. The US was the last major country to move to chip and PIN, as Europe adopted it in early 2000 and the UK completely adopted it in 2004. How does EMV work? It uses a special technology called cryptography, which is basically scrambling plain text into ciphertext, which you may know as encryption. With each time you use the card, it creates a unique code that cannot be reused and will be immediately deleted after the transaction. Your PIN number in the chip serves as a tiny computer that stores the information temporarily, transmitting it to your bank and then deleting the code immediately after you're done. The mag stripe versus EMV. A magnetic stripe was easy to duplicate. The old school way of committing fraud and stealing money was that someone, a criminal, would probably place a skimming device on a gas terminal or your terminal at point of sale, collect all the customer's information, put it into a computer system, and then they would go online and they buy plastic plain credit cards with a mag stripe on it. They transfer the information they've gotten from the skimming device and put it onto the new card. And that's why sometimes if you've ever had fraud and you see it in a different part of the country or even a different part of the world, they've made a duplicate card and they're able to use your information 1,000 miles away. The magnetic stripe holds all of the customer's information, including your last transactions and everything about your bank. So with your debit account or your debit card, it's holding all of your bank account information. And as we all know, signatures can be easily duplicated. How many times do you just scribble your name without even thinking about it when you sign for a purchase? Anyone can scribble anything, and a retailer will accept it as a legitimate signature. Where did EMV come from? The French designed it first back in 1984, but it was not until 1996 when those 3 major credit card companies we spoke about earlier, Europay, MasterCard, and Visa, decided to collaborate together and perfect the technology. Europe took it over in early 2000, and UK made the move in 2004, with Canada falling behind them in 2012. You may have noticed in the news, or if you read online, there was a spike in credit and debit card fraud here in the US between 2012 and 2016. That's because criminals were forced to move out of Canada and Europe into the US to steal our money, because chip and PIN technology implemented in those countries made it more difficult for them. Now it's our move, America. As you probably already know, the U.S. adopted EMV in late 2015. Actually, October 1st, 2015 to be exact. That's when most US banks began issuing new cards to their customers. You probably received something in the mail with a new card asking you to make the switch. We haven't completely adopted to chip and pen. We're doing what we call chip and signature, where you can use your chip card, but you still can sign for the transaction. Of course, this comes along with a lot of problems. There's a liability to retailers for using chip and signature in lieu of chip and pen. If someone uses chip and signature, let's say at Target, and their card information gets stolen, Target is then liable for 100% of that purchase because they didn't make the customer use chip and pen. They let them use chip and signature. There's been a lot of difficult issues with adopting this completely. It's really hurting small businesses, as an upgraded terminal can cost between $800 and $1,000. That's nothing for Walmart, Target, or Home Depot, but for small mom and pop companies or your local watering hole, that's a lot of money. The US has until 2020 to completely put in the chip and pen technology. Let's see how the next 4 years are going to go. Let's not get too excited about EMV. It still does not work with online transactions, and as we all know, signature terminals are still vulnerable. Because we don't have to completely adopt it until 2020, there's a window of opportunity criminals know about, and that may cause an estimated $10 billion in fraud. So we're not really safe completely just yet. I have some questions for you all to think about. How do you feel about the US EMV switch? What steps do you take to protect yourself? And do you think we will ever be completely free and clear of card fraud? Thank you for taking the time to look at my presentation. I hope you learned something. Please feel free to ask any questions.